My guest today is Mike Russell, who is the co-founder and CEO of Monument, an online platform for those looking to change their relationship with alcohol. Mike is a member of the founding teams of 4 highly successful New York City technology startups that will still operate today. Mike is also a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma survivor and has dedicated much of his time towards raising money to help children with cancer. Welcome to my show, Mike.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. From that intro, it's like you've done everything as well in the world possible. So this is going to be really good.
I'm very excited to talk about, everything in my life and the company and to be here. So.
Yeah, of course. Great. Where are you currently calling in from right now?
Hoboken, New Jersey.
Oh, how is everything up there?
Honestly, Hoboken's been great.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not back to where it was, but it's very lively
Sure.
and it's a wonderful town.
Yeah. Now, depending on when people hear this or view this, this was actually filmed in October of 2020. So since the show will syndicate on multiple platforms for multiple time in the future, I always like to give a snapshot at time so people understand what's happening in the world around us now. So therefore, they can relate what we've learned today and then also implement that in the future whenever they do watch it. So with you as well, you have, like I said, done so many amazing things. What I really like for people to hear is our origin stories, because we're all very similar in many ways. We all may have different life circumstances, but the emotions that we all experience are the same. With you growing up and being so successful, what were some of the struggles that you had?
During my kind of childhood, I would say I was very fortunate. Wonderful family, wonderful parents. I grew up in northern New Jersey, and I think I would say my biggest struggle was probably when I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just being diagnosed with cancer. Obviously, that's very difficult for anyone.
Sure.
I think for me personally, the timing of it was particularly difficult because it was right between when I graduated high school and I was going to college.
Yeah.
So
oh wow, that is a
friends
big
got
marker.
leave and start the next chapter of their life while I checked into. By the way, a wonderful organization at Hackensack Hospital and Tomorrow's Children's, from where I was treated, and it was an experience that definitely changed me.
Wow. And with that diagnosis and going off to college, how did you start to just deal with life in general?
Honestly, that's where I kind of learned the mentality of one day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
The more I'd forward think, oh, what if this, what if that, that doesn't help and I can't control it, right? So it's what do I have to do today to get? And, that's kind of carried through me, after that experience throughout life. And I use that principle, today.
Yeah. As an entrepreneur, what has motivated you to continue to create multiple companies and multiple brands?
Yeah, so I just think the passion for working with people and to be able to create things, bringing an idea from someone's mind into reality, for me is the most exhilarating, fun thing to do. And when you're doing a group of smart people you love, there's just nothing better. So I just think I love it, and that's kind of what drives me to keep doing it.
With being as busy as you are, I mean, you have to really be mindful and I suppose an expert when it comes to your time management. How do you manage that?
Obsessively.
Yeah.
I literally schedule everything.
Yeah.
And, I do a pre kind of check of my schedule before bed. And then the first thing I do when I wake up, double confirm, and everything's slotted. So things you would never, obviously if I'm going to the bathroom, I'm not going to put that in my schedule. Things people normally wouldn't schedule, schedule it just to make sure my time's managed correctly.
Yeah. I'm also thinking with being so successful and doing so many things, there has to be I'm assuming that there are times when you do become anxious and overwhelmed, especially if you're starting a new venture, just in life. And that's one thing I think sometimes people forget who may be watching the show or just in general, is sometimes we see someone on a platform and say, this person's so successful and they're this or that, and they probably don't have those same struggles that I have. And so I'm assuming, just like everyone else, that you do have those times as well when you do struggle with multiple things.
Yeah. I think everybody's dealing with something, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's on the surface is normally not what's really happening. So, for me personally, there's been a lot of struggles, especially leading up to where I am today. I mean, I invested for my first startup, you mentioned 4 great ones, let's talk about the other non-great ones, right?
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
All my money.
Yeah. Wow.
Technology personally, and lost it all. and I was I think 30 years old, and I had nothing. And so kind of like, it's not as easy or as glamorous as it seems. And the big thing for me right now, growing a business, is when you're a young company, you build a team, and that team's your family. And there's a sense of responsibility on a daily basis to think about these wonderful people that are so hardworking and talented, passionate, that have taken a chance on this idea, this young company, and believed in me enough to kind of come join us. And, my responsibility to them is to make sure that this is an experience they enjoy, and that they grow, and that it's a great, unbelievable step in their career. So I do put a lot of pressure on that as well, as I think about kind of daily things.
Sure, it makes sense. I mean, from a cultural standpoint, in your every company, I mean, you really have to be mindful of that, and how to create a healthy, vibrant culture in everything you do. Yeah. With that in mind, how did you? Because I know that you also had a struggle with alcoholism. I'd like to transfer into that, because I think that is something where often people think, well, if someone's so successful and so healthy in so many ways, and then the idea that there may be something that they struggle with, is sometimes there, like I said, there could be a disconnect there. Why don't you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I guess leading back to businesses, the moment I jump into this is like every company I've started or have been involved with has been something that's been challenging for me in my daily life that I thought shouldn't be so difficult, right? So Monument is it's a productization of kind of how I thought about my relationship with alcohol, and how kind of the process of getting to the point where I knew I needed to make a change, and then from there how I ended up getting to the point where I am now, which is not drinking and actually feeling the best I've ever felt. So I didn't fit the mold of how society would think of the average drinker, right? I wasn't drinking every day. I never craved a drink. Maybe I was a once or twice a month drinker. My challenge was really like, I had one drink, I had 15, 100 times.
All or nothing.
It was an all or nothing thing. And, I would tell myself over and over, I even tracked it on a spreadsheet, success or failure. I'm going to have one drink tonight. Fail. I'm not going to drink tonight. Fail. And I just had to come to terms with the fact that, like, number one, I didn't want to drink anymore, right? And number two is, I think the harder part is, like, I need some assistance to stop. I'm not going to stop, be able to do it on my own. Yeah. So once I got there, I went out and kind of looked at what are my options, to really get some support here or treatment to be able to stop drinking. You have any questions about
as I was hearing you talk about that, it is interesting, because there are so many people who, like, okay, I'm just going to have a drink. Okay, we have a drink, and then, or I'm going to have more than I should, and then, they struggle, either hangover or they've their comportment or their behavior while they're drinking obviously is not healthy. But they normalize it quite a bit and say, well, it wasn't that bad. I only blacked out for a few minutes. And so there's a justification of a behavior that we know is not healthy for us. How did you, when you looked at your own life, what were some of the justifications you used to say, yes, it's still okay to do this, to drink?
Yeah, so, I think maybe on the outside I would say that, but on the inside I kind of knew it really isn't. My guess would be that might be the case for some people. I'd say it's also life stage, right? So, yeah, I can go out and have 15 drinks and be hungover the next day when I'm 25. Yeah. Miss a day at work, not the end of the world. I mean, I have companies, I have children, I have, real responsibility that I take seriously, and looking at myself and saying, this is not the life I want. Also, not that it's like easier or harder for anyone, but like it was more simple for me because it wasn't ingrained in my daily life. I wasn't very social. I wasn't drinking all the time. Yeah. So, I didn't need to have a drink really to go out or participate in the activities that I do. So from there, it was, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. What was the event that happened for you that says, yes, I need help?
Yeah, so I think it was a combination of like, okay, I just keep failing on that spreadsheet, fail, no successes. And then number two is I was like in bed for like 2 days, hungover.
Oh goodness.
I couldn't, like, my son was like starting to play soccer, and like I grew up with a soccer player. That's like the thing I look the most forward to. Just, I don't care if he's good or bad, just watching him out there, right? And that was it. I was like, this has to end because I don't want to ever do this again, for him and for myself.
Yeah. Well, first off, I don't think you heard me, but when you said you were hungover for 2 days, I said, wow. And I want, that sounded like that was judgment there. It was not. I'm saying that was just a long time. So I wanted to clarify that because I don't want people to think that there's judgment at all, because there's no judgment. You what?
I thought you were impressed.
Well, good reframe there. That's interesting. Yeah. So that's great. Yeah. So you really looked at the norms that you had and the values that you had, and then you weighed that out with the consequence or just even the behavior of drinking, and you found that there was a huge disconnect there.
Exactly. Huge.
Yeah. When you looked at the idea of Monument, or rather, you looked around the world to see what the options were. And there's some amazing, wonderful companies out there and organizations out there as well. But what was it for you that says, I want to make Monument a little bit different than the other organizations or other options?
Yeah. So, at this point in my life, I wasn't thinking about Monument at all.
Okay.
I had even ideas of business in my head. I was solely focused on not drinking anymore. That was like my primary goal, right? It was maybe a year or so later when I actually said, wow, there might be a business here. But, the first thing I did is, AA is an organization that many of my friends are a part of and have had so much success. I mean, I don't think there's a chance some of my friends in AA might not even be with us today if it wasn't for AA.
Yeah.
So, I that was my first step. I went to a meeting, and, I just, it wasn't a fit for me. I think I wasn't drinking frequently. I just felt like when I left, like it wasn't something I was going to be able to commit to.
Sure.
And you really have to commit in order to have success there. So that was my first stop. After that, I went online, I Googled, good treatment and outpatient in New York City. And this is kind of the frustrating part is I contacted 2 or 3 of the organizations that seemed to be the best. And only one of them called me back and told me there was a 6-month wait list and it was incredibly expensive. And there wasn't much to it other than therapy. So I was like, there's like when you go through that kind of path of getting to the point where you're ready to stop. You want to take that next step, but there's no next step that seemingly work. It's horribly frustrating and emotionally challenging.
What did you do with that?
Well, the entrepreneur in me kicked in, and I said, I'm just going to figure this out on my own. I just started calling people. I called doctors. I called my friends, and honestly, I found out about the medication that ultimately helped me stop drinking through a buddy of mine that I knew he didn't drink. I called him up. I knew he wasn't in AA, so I figured maybe he was doing something different. And he told me about this medication, and that's how I learned about it. I went to my doctor. The medication is called disulfiram. So what this medication does, and I'm sure you know this already, but is my body can't metabolize alcohol, or like if I drink while I take it, I'll get sick. And for me, it was the perfect solution because in the morning, I never wanted to drink. So, I'll take this. And then if I hit that trigger, I knew in my mind, if I drink, I'll throw up everywhere. So it ended up being...
It created a conditioned response that you didn't want to experience. Nobody wants to throw up.
So I started taking that back in February 2018, and that was it. I haven't had a drink since.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How different is your life?
So now incredibly different. But, and again, you know this, but many listeners might not, is, one thinks, you stop drinking, it's over, right?
Yeah.
You're cured. Well, number one, I don't necessarily believe you're ever cured, right? It's chronic, and you always have to kind of make sure you're focused on that. But number 2 is I learned something the hard way about co-occurring conditions. So, I would think that, 2018, I stopped drinking. I sold one of my businesses. I had lost a lot of money, as I mentioned, and made a bunch back. So I was like, this is going to be the best year of my life. And then co-occurring conditions.
Comorbidity, yes.
Comorbidities, yeah. I'm anxious. I'm like, I'm impulsive. I'm emotional. All these things that I've never been, and I just didn't know why it was happening. And I think the next step was I had to address those. And once I did that, and we did do it through kind of a CBT based kind of program, I was able to stabilize and get to the place where I am now.
Yeah. Co-occurring disorders, for my listeners who may not know what that is co-occurring, what that basically means is you have a substance abuse struggle and then you have a mental health struggle as well. So they coincide together. So he was talking about how he worked with the substance abuse struggle, and then now we have the other elements there that were perhaps a blind spot you didn't realize. And so that's the whole aspect of, oh gosh, now didn't know that was there. And so now that's something you get to focus on as well. Yeah. And then the CBT that you mentioned is called cognitive behavioral therapy. What that basically does for my listeners is it helps us focus on what we think about and how that affects our behaviors and how those two are matched together. So it's the decoupling of our thought process, which then decouples the behavior that we exhibit. Yeah. So going back to Monument, because I want to hear more about this, because I was checking out the website and it's phenomenal. I love, specifically now with the social distancing and everything that's happening, you've really created a platform for people that they don't necessarily have to leave their house.
Yeah, so it's joinmonument.com if you want to check it out. So you're really productizing or creating a technology around my experience and addressing my core challenges, right?
Yeah.
Number one is let's help people interact with other people in a safe place from their home, laptop or computer, and let's let them support each other. Let's create a safe environment where everybody's equal. There's no judgment, and where people can learn, right? Like that is our community. So the community is the first part of our product, of our platform. The second part is treatment. I'll talk about community first.
Sure.
I think about it in 3 pillars, right? First, support. So we want you to come there for safe, anonymously, free, anywhere in the country, and you can ask questions through an anonymous forum. Other members will answer. We have core values of supporting this, no judgment, unconditional love. And then the second piece, which is really fascinating, and is called therapist moderated support groups. So we get a little bit more specific here, where there's a therapist, and it's not group therapy, to be clear. The therapist is there to help guide the conversation. It's all through group video, and anyone that attends defaults to off video, but has the option to join if they'd like. And they're group specific. So there's an LGBTQ group, there's a men's group, there's a women's group, there's a group for people having anxiety during quarantine, and they have start and end times, and those have been incredibly well received.
Are those with the comorbidity? I don't want to use that word. That sounds really really clinical right now. Is that with the people who have those struggles, as far as the group topics you talked about? Is that in relation to alcohol struggles as well?
Everything is very much alcohol specific.
Okay. Gotcha.
But none of the community piece that I'm talking about now is really meant to be treatment. It's more meant to kind of like that first phase before I started treatment was what the community was built around, right? Where do I stand? Do I have a problem? Like, how do I come to terms with that?
Yeah.
Where's the support that I need, and how am I going to learn? And, that's what we want to address through the community. We want everyone to have access, and we want it to be free. So, that's very much built around getting supported by a group of peers or cohorts like you. If it's a men's group, you're going to be in a group with all men, and the therapist guiding it's going to be a man. And it's just a safe place to just talk. And I think that goes a long way. And what have we seen is really fascinating. We have members join the groups every day. We have members in the same group every week. Like, it is unbelievable.
That's amazing. Yeah. Wow. So let's transition into the second part of it, the treatment part of it.
Yeah. So there's support, there's information there, and then also there's the relationship piece in the community. And then we think about the community as a way to give people information and get them to the right place. And to be clear, Monument treatment plans might not be the right place for everybody, right? But if it is, you can sign up for medical treatment, right? And what we do is we connect you to a licensed physician and a licensed therapist that very specifically understand the alcohol use disorder space and can give you kind of the care or oversight that you need as you think through medications you might want to try, or ways to identify and address comorbidities. And currently, we're available in 10 states and expanding as fast as we can. Wow. Actually starting to take insurance coverage. So that's like a big thing for us.
Wow.
Making sure that one day this is free for everybody.
Sure.
And, anyone has access at no charge to effective treatment that they deserve. So.
That's amazing. That's also really wonderful that you are accepting insurance too, in the sense that specifically now, because of everything that's happened, a lot of insurance companies have opened up and are allowing for more telemedicine, because historically they would only allow for a certain number of telemedicine sessions per calendar year. And now, I mean, with everything, it's fully open. And as a provider, or historic provider, the great thing is it's a great pay rate for the provider as well. So it's a win-win for everybody. Everyone's able to do it from their home. The provider's able to receive compensation for that as well. Obviously, that's not why you're doing it, but I think it's great that you are all offering those options because
we're trying. I mean, we're just starting.
That's amazing.
To be clear, most people won't currently be covered by insurance cash pay, but the team is very much focused over the next couple of years on ensuring that, no pun intended, everybody has insurance coverage, and if even everybody has access to this at a price they can afford or for free.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Well, Mike Russell, this has been an absolute pleasure having you on my show today. Thank you so much. I am so honored to have you be a guest, as well as to learn more about Monument. If my listeners want to find out more information about you and more about Monument, where will they find this information online?
So you visit joinmonument.com, and I encourage everybody to, as a first step, just join the community. You're anonymous and get information, start talking to people. It's like the best way to get started. And from there, I think there'll be a ton of value, and you can kind of figure out what your next steps are and maybe even learn a little about yourself and some other cool people that you meet there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being an awesome guest again. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.